Hi guys, BoylerRoom here. Just thought I'd do a quick update on the class changes for update 2.3.0. This is entitled The One About Hunters, which I've already mentioned in a previous video where I've discussed other changes in the update. But this one is particularly about the class balancing. Because it primarily focuses on hunters, that's where I'm going to start. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the changes to the gunslinger class for the hunter. Incendiary grenades haven't been changed at all. Swarm grenades have been given a buff. They now arm with an increased radius of 0.5 meters, and they also have a base damage increase of 7%, so they now hurt you further away. Trip mines, on the other hand, no longer attach to target, so gunslingers no longer have an attachable grenade, which is very interesting. The trip mine now arms on impact, and then instead of attaching, it bounces off and will detonate shortly after. They've also been nerfed by 3% damage, so trip mines don't do anywhere near as much damage as they used to, and they no longer do the attachable damage either. So think about how you want to do that. Placing them carefully is obviously an option, but my experience, and maybe I'm just not very good at using them, is that people can just walk right through them and take almost no damage. They detonate super slowly. They just don't seem to be anywhere near as effective as they used to be, which is very disappointing in both PvE and PvP. No changes to the jump for the gunslinger, but Golden Gun has been given a buff as well. It now has a 50% increase in base damage, and it also does an additional 30% of damage against AI combatants. On top of that, Deadeye also increases Golden Gun damage by an additional 30%. So if you are running Deadeye, you will have a substantial increase in damage on top of the Golden Gun buff. On the other hand, a lot of people were running things like Combustion, and they don't get the benefit of that additional damage. But in PvP, it really doesn't seem to matter that much. The big difference is in PvE. Throwing Knife base damage has been reduced by 10%. Circle of Life has now been modified. It used to increase the duration of the Golden Gun while it was active. Now, instead of doing that, Precision Kills now reduce the Golden Gun cooldown. On top of that, they've also removed the +1 armor buff that it had, the passive buff. So Circle of Life is useful if you're looking to decrease the cooldown time of your Golden Gun, but otherwise it isn't as effective as it was previously if you were using it. I personally didn't use it. I was running the Incendiary Blade, which should have been a one-hit PvP kill if you were able to get a precision hit. However, that has now been changed as well, because the decrease in damage that the Throwing Knife now does reduces the amount of damage so much that the Incendiary Blade is no longer a one-hit kill, even with a precision hit. Other changes to the Gunslinger class are in the passive tree. Scavenger is the one that has really got the main change here. Essentially, all this is that it now increases the amount of grenade and melee energy that you receive for picking up ammo by an additional 33%, whereas Keyhole and Gunslinger Trance have not been changed. Over the Horizon, however, and Chain of Woe have essentially switched with the +1 recovery passive. So Over the Horizon used to have it, it's now been removed, and as you can see, Chain of Woe has an increase in the recovery stat, which you can see here. That about sums it up for the changes in Golden Gun, so let's see what it looks like in action. All of my testing has been against the Ultra Knight on the Dreadnought, and I tested with the new Deadeye perks. I also tested with Celestial Nighthawk to see if he's a one-shot kill, and here are the results. Running Golden Gun with Deadeye and Over the Horizon, I had a crack at the Ultra Knight, and you can see here that the Golden Gun seemed to do little more than a sniper rifle would. However, running Golden Gun with the Celestial Nighthawk and Deadeye, you can see, even with the Over the Horizon extended range perk, if you stand back towards the door, you don't quite do enough damage to kill the Ultra Knight. However, if you run to the front of that platform, you close the gap enough that the Ultra Knight is killed one shot with the Celestial Nighthawk. So I'm not sure about the Over the Horizon perk. I'm interested to test that a little more and see exactly where that kicks in with and without the perk, to see exactly where that Ultra Knight is a one-shot kill and where the range drops off. Blade Dancers, on the other hand, have the only attachable grenade with the Flux Grenade now. The Skip Grenade has actually been nerfed. It now has 13% reduction in damage, and also the tracking time has been reduced from 12 seconds, which is a long time, to 8 seconds. So the Skip Grenades should not do anywhere near as much damage, and you should be able to run away from them a lot easier now if they are tracking you in the PvP. Blink has actually been nerfed. It now incurs a penalty of 1 to recovery. Arcblade's undergone a couple of changes. The idea here is that Bungie want you to get away from spamming the trigger or the bumper and actually consider when you are going to use your swing, your strike. So what they've done is they've increased the duration of Arcblade by 2 seconds. They've also increased the hit detection range by half a meter and increased damage against AI combatants by 30%. So it's got a buff in those senses. But if you're swinging in the air, there's now a 0.8 second cooldown between Arcblade swings, and I've actually done a test here, and you can see it doesn't actually seem that bad. I'm spamming the trigger trying to see where and when, how far apart the swings are. You can see here that it's not that terrible, but there is a distinct gap between swings. However, the energy cost per swing has now been increased by 20%, which is significant, especially if you happen to miss a target. If you do hit a target, the energy cost has been decreased by 20%, but some of the testing that I've done doesn't necessarily suggest that that offsets the initial increase in energy cost. Vanish has now changed so that when you actually activate your Arc Blade, when you cast your Blade Dancer super, you will vanish on activation, which is a new effect on the Vanish perk. Showstopper's damage radius has also been extended by 1 meter, which is quite useful if you're using that, particularly with a lot of ads. Blink Strike has been nerfed. The lunge distance has been decreased by 0.4 of a meter. Backstab has had a reduction in what they call the valid backstab angle by 30 degrees. The idea behind that is to try and eliminate backstab proccing when you're actually meleeing someone in the face. So that's had some changes. The invisibility effect on Scape Artist has been delayed by half a second, and Fast Twitch, the recharge on Fast Twitch, has been reduced by 20%. So all round, Blink Strike has actually been nerfed quite significantly, with all 3 potential perks available to you being nerfed in some way. The passives to Blade Dance have fundamentally undergone no change, with the exception of Encore. Now, Encore not only extends the duration of Arc Blade, but it also grants a 150% increase to the Arc Blade damage for a short period of time. Now, I tested this in an enemy moving against each other event, and used to have an almost infinite super in a spawn cave using Encore and Showstopper in conjunction with each other. But now, you can see here, my super runs out quite quickly because of the changes to the increased energy cost in supers. I'm even wearing the Mask of the Third Man to try and reduce the amount of energy that I'm expending per swing. It just isn't doing enough. So the changes that they've made aren't terribly balanced. While you may do increased damage per swing, the super doesn't last anywhere near as long, so it's not as effective in that manner. And finally, for the Hunters, the Night Stalker class. In the grenade category, the spike grenades have been changed slightly, with the damage impulses being reduced from 10 per second down to 5 per second, but the damage per impulse has actually been increased by 100%, so the DPS is actually unchanged. It just means that fewer impulses but more damage each time. The other grenades have remained unchanged. Shadow Shot has been buffed in a way because the suppression effect of the tether now applies immediately upon impact. So before, you would fire your Shadow Shot and an opponent could feasibly get part of their super away before the tether took effect. Likewise, an enemy might be able to get a shot away or slam you or do something like that. Whereas now, as soon as they are impacted by that tether will automatically take effect. The smoke melee ability on the Night Stalker has been changed with the intention being to make it less frustrating for people in PvP and more effective in PvE, but I don't know how that's going to play out. The changes are that the impact damage of the smoke grenade itself has been increased by 34%, but the damage over time and suppression abilities have actually been reduced. Jumping suppression has been removed from the initial impact completely. The base duration for the smoke cloud has actually been increased by 1 second. The envenomed upgrade has been increased by a further second. Jump suppression has been removed from the envenomed cloud as well. Vanish in Smoke used to have a +1 agility passive. That's now been removed. The duration of the snare cloud has also been buffed by an additional 1 second. The passives for the Night Stalker have been changed slightly as well. Courage of the Pack now increases recovery, armor, and agility by 2 per stack, and it can stack up to 3 times. However, in-game it only tells you that it can increase recovery and armor, so I'm not sure what's going on there. It might just be a display error. Lockdown increases smoke duration by an additional 2 seconds on top of the snare upgrade, or the envenomed upgrade now. So while Lockdown was useful before, it is even more powerful now. The final passive tree on the Night Stalker class includes Predator and Shade Step, both of which have been altered. If you have Predator equipped,
That now reduces the cooldown of the Shadow Shot ability, and the ever popular Shade Step has now been moved to a single dodge with a 3-second cooldown. So previously you used to be able to get a double dodge and then it would drop to a single dodge and you would have a cooldown of sorts. Now there is one dodge, a 3-second cooldown, one dodge, a 3-second cooldown. The same actually applies as well to the Titan's Twilight Garrison. The Evade ability and the Shade Step ability have been considered to be the same thing. And that about sums up the changes for the Night Stalker subclass and the Hunter class overall. So you can see that there are a substantial number of changes there for the Hunter class. I was going to include in this video an update on the supers for the other classes as well and demonstrate them being used against the Ultra Knight, but I think I'll do that in a separate video. So if you've got something out of this video, you understand the changes, or you've got questions about the changes to the Hunter class, don't be afraid to leave a comment below. Please, if you got something out of this video or you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up and like this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.